Facebook Live. So I'm Deborah Byrne from Deborah Byrne Psychology Services, known across social media as DBpsychology. And you're more than welcome this morning. I'm going to talk about a little bit about anxiety. And as I said, for this month of October, it's Mental Health Awareness Month, and I would talk more about mental health this month. But I want to give you some tips if you're feeling anxious that you can actually use, some self-help tips that you can use. But I also want to raise a little bit about mental health and anxiety. Um, Anxiety, as we know, is a natural response. It can be a natural response when it's a small amount to stressful events. So sitting an exam, your driving theory, you've all done that, your driving test, something like that is okay. Um, but when it becomes excessive, when it becomes an ongoing worry, then we can start to develop problems. And sometimes those problems might develop further into different anxiety disorders. So they need extra support, all right? They need extra support, and you need to become very aware of the symptoms around those particular anxiety issues. If you are struggling, please reach out. That's really, really important. If you feel at this time your anxiety is becoming an issue, then really, really please reach out and talk to either your GP, your main doctor. You can also self-refer to a therapist. You can self-refer to me as well. So there are some common types, and I just want to highlight them. I'm not going to go into very much detail on these ones this morning because it's all about, 7 tips to help with anxiety. But I have done videos and blogs listing out all the causes, the treatments, the diagnosis, and how you can help yourself around those and build more awareness around a variety of different anxiety disorders, including general anxiety disorder, social anxiety disorder, phobias, OCD, panic disorder, PTSD, and they're on my blog. It's www.deborahbyrnepsychologyservices.com, and you can check those out. So even if you haven't got time to read the blog, you can just listen to the video in the background and find out what you need to find out there. But understanding that some of the symptoms, if you're kind of going, do I need to get help? Do I not need to get help? How bad does it have to be before I go get help? If it's, excessive ongoing worry, a daily worry, if you're constantly, worrying every day, and it seems in excess of what it would have been in the past, then I would reach out. I would reach out and go talk to your GP. Some of the other symptoms can be irritability, headaches, restlessness, difficulty concentrating is a very common one, nausea, tiredness, of course, because you'll have sleep difficulties, and being startled easily. They're just some of the symptoms. And as I said, each one of those disorders that I've talked about have their own symptoms as well. So do check those out and get more detail on them. But if you feel, yeah, I'm ticking a few of those boxes, you don't have to tick all of them. If you're ticking a few of them, then please go and reach out immediately. Now, with anxiety, it is common to also have anxiety with other conditions such as depression. Depression and anxiety tend to go hand in hand. Postnatal depression, also a very common one. Eating disorders, so people that suffer with eating disorders, very common for them to also have anxiety as well. The causes, we really don't know what the causes are. There are many factors that can contribute, of course, genetics being one of them, brain chemistry, very traumatic or stressful events. We are going through a pandemic is classed as a very stressful event. We are expecting high incidence of PTSD in people and in children. So, be aware of this. And I've talked about this. I've talked about PTSD in children, and I've talked about it in adults as well, because the symptoms can be slightly different. So please, again, reach out and ask for help if you need them. So getting into the tips. Let's get into the tips. So the first one is to move your body. This is a simple one that you can do. 15 minutes of exercise, get up, get moving. It uses up the stress hormones because anxiety is part of that fight, flight, or fright mode. It uses up those stress hormones and gets down and starts to reduce down the anxiety symptoms in your body. If walking doesn't appeal to you, try another form of exercise. Yoga. It doesn't have to be a lot of energy induced. It can be something gentle like yoga, tai chi. Of course, swimming would be great for your joints if you can get into a swimming pool. Anything like that. If you love running, then yes, your running is going to help. If you have run in the past, then consider going back to doing it again. So any sort of exercise there will reduce down the hormones, stress hormones, use them up, burn them up, and get them going and out of your body. So therefore, it's going to reduce down your anxiety. Number two is your sleep. Always, always so important. I think people don't realize how important your sleep is. If you tackled nothing else out of any of these tips, please tackle your sleep. I've done a whole video on 11 tips to help you sleep better. They're very quick, they're very easy implementation. One of them is to just keep to a regular routine. So that means getting up at the same time and going to bed at the same time. So roughly within an hour every day of getting up at the same time. And even on the weekends, your body and your brain love that kind of routine. It needs routine. So sticking to that regular sleep pattern. You need between 7 and 9 hours. Anybody who tells you that you need less than 7 hours is rubbish, is absolutely bunkum. Okay, you must have a minimum of 7 hours, and that's 7 hours of sleep, not 7 hours, just getting into bed, reading a book, and then maybe sleeping for 6 hours or something like that. You have to have sleep for 7 hours. Because otherwise you are setting your mind and your body up for a huge amount of difficulties. Physical difficulties, physical health problems, as well as mental health problems. So it's vital. Sleep is vital to our body and our mind. So as I said, if you tackle nothing else, if you take up no other tip, do the sleep, tackle the sleep. Number three, a pretty obvious one, is to back up on the or ease up on the caffeine. Caffeine will increase your anxiety your anxiety symptoms. It also has a huge implication for your sleep as well, because it cuts the sleep hunger drive. It's like starting a car and it stutters. So basically, when you have a cup of coffee, say, you're putting your brain into stutter mode. So your sleep drive doesn't build as smoothly as it should during the day, and therefore you're kind of in and out with the with that. It's like building it on a stutter rather than a nice smooth curve, and that's what we want. Nice smooth curve on the sleep hunger drive. So, but also you become more jittery, and particularly too if you take asthma medication. So an awful lot of people who take inhalers will find that caffeine, particularly coffee, will cause them to get the jitters, what they call the jitters. You'll get with the shakes. It's the interaction between your medication and the coffee, too much coffee. Sugar as well, you have to watch the sugar. The same thing again, if you've got sleep problems, you're going to be craving the sugar. So it kind of gets into a negative cycle there. You want the caffeine, you want the sugar, and it gets into a negative sleep. They impact your sleep, they impact your anxiety symptoms, they make them worse, and therefore you get into a negative cycle. So you have to, you really have to take the bull by the horns and break the cycle by cutting back or easing back on the sugar and the caffeine there. So number 4 then is to be very proactive and create a worry period. Allow yourself 20 minutes to worry, but get out a diary. Write down one worrisome thought. So one thought, just tackle one thought at a time. And let your mind wander. Let your mind wander to the worst case scenario. What's going to happen? You set a timer on your phone and you for 20 minutes, you let the mind wander, you go the worst case scenario, but you're proactive by writing it down. When you write it down, we're taking it out of up here, you're dropping it down on paper, and you're telling your head, okay, it's down here on paper. You don't have to think about it anymore. Firstly, it's on the paper. That's where it is. If we need it, it's here. We can read it. You don't have to think about it anymore. So in that sense, you're taking your foot off the accelerator there a little bit. Then what you do is you look at it and you read back over what you've written. And is it realistic? Remember, anxiety and fear will overestimate the outcomes and mistakes. All right? So, is this realistic? And sometimes when we read back over what we've written, we go, oh my God, that's ridiculous. That'll never happen. But sometimes we go, okay, that might happen. We're still in the frame of mind where we say, okay, that might happen to us. So who could you reach out for help for? What can you do? Remember, you have handled stressful events in the past. You are very capable of handling this one. If faced with a crisis, who can I talk to? Who can I reach out to help for? Who will positively back me up? We all have somebody. And what can I do? So 1 to 2 steps creates a plan. And that's what you're doing. You're giving your brain the solution it's been trying to seek by worrying. Okay, it's been worrying, and you're giving your brain that solution. You're saying, no, this is who we can contact. This is what we can do. 1 to 2 steps is a plan. It's a good plan to tackle that scenario. And you'll be amazed at how much your foot comes off that accelerator, as I say, and the anxiety starts to decrease by doing that exercise. So 20 minutes maximum of a worry period. Number 5 then is to breathe deeply. An obvious one, you might say, but when we're anxious, we're going to only use the top half of our lungs. We're going to be breathing very shallow. So even training ourselves to take a deep breath and do a 3-minute breather every day, but we need to practice it consistently every day. Even getting an app, meditation app, do 5 minutes even on the meditation app. There's some really good ones out there on the market, free, so they're not going to cost you anything. But you need to practice it every day, because you can then take it with you on the go, or you can use it when you do hit a stressful event. This then helps you to, it calms you down, recenters you, and you can use it. It's a way of refocusing the mind as well. It's a great refocusing tool and calming tool for the mind. But you need to practice it every day. So you need to set that meditation app, or set up a period of 3-minute breather. Now I have a link out to my own podcast on the 3-minute breather and a 7-minute breather and mindfulness. There's a whole series on mindfulness there on my podcast if you want to learn how to do that. And there's a link in the blog. The other thing you can do is a grounding technique. Now there are several grounding techniques that are very good that you can use. And one very simple, I call it the 5-4-3-2-1 game. I use it a lot with my people with disabilities. It's really good for grounding. And even kids can learn this. If kids are in a panic and you find that your child, is in a panic or really anxious, then even doing, one of everything I'm going to talk about with them, to get them refocused into this moment and grounded into this moment. So you can use this with a kid. But for an adult or an older child, 5-4-3-2-1 is what we do. So it's 5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel, 3 things that you can hear, and 2 things that you can smell, and 1 good thing about yourself. Now most people can do all the others, but find it very difficult to say something good about themselves. But even say, okay, have you got a nice top on, or do you like a bag you have, or a pair of shoes or something? And then eventually you can work around saying something nice about yourself, like I am a nice person, or I've got like nice eyes, or I like my hair today, or something like that. But it's easy. It's a really simple game to play with kids, and it is one you can use with them if you know, look at me, get them to look at you, get them to focus on you, and then get them to name, you know, one thing they can see, one thing they can feel, one thing they can hear right now, one thing they can smell, and then one thing that is good about themselves. But even if you say, you know what, I love you, and that is a, you know, that is something you can use with them. Number 6 is to support yourself with positive people. Anxiety, like depression, it's a bit like what I think of, you know, in Star Wars, the dark side. Come to the dark side. It likes to isolate you. Come into the darkness, stay here with me, alone and isolated. And anxiety does that. So it's very, very, very important. And particularly now, it's very important to start reaching out to people, but only if they're positive. So delete the negative people. And if you want help with that, deleting negative people or dealing with negative people, I have a free training module up in my group for mums, and there is a link in the description. There will be a link in the description below. So, you know, make sure the people you're reaching out to are positive people, that they will support you. We really need people that will listen to us, who understand us and support us more now than ever. And particularly if you feel you have anxiety. You know, being knowing, as I said to my mum's group, you know, having a list even written down of people I can call when. So when whatever the event is happens, this is the person I call. And even having that list written down or on your phone can be so reassuring. And then to make that call and reach out if you're feeling anxious. Number 7 is to watch what and who you're listening to right now. You know, social media is great in one sense. The news and that is great in one sense, but in another sense, it can be very negative. Both of them can be very negative. So, you know, muting them, mute your social media notifications, mute down the news. You don't need to listen to it 24/7. You don't need to be on social media 24/7. You know, have a set time, even once a day, that you would check in, listen to what's going on in the news, or you have a set time you check your social media and then back off. Turn it off after that. Negative content, that's even if you have the radio playing in the background or the television playing low in the background, your brain is still picking all that up. And what's happening there is it's impacting your mental health. It's still impacting you mentally and physically. So try and choose, be very choosy about, you know, what you're listening to, who you're listening to. Try and pick stuff that's more positive, a positive podcast, you know, relaxation apps, creating an uplifting or relaxing playlist for yourself is much more beneficial to you right now than listening or watching social media and the news 24/7. In fact, that would not be a very good idea, particularly if you're anxious, and you're going to be drawn to it. If you're anxious, you will be drawn to the negative stuff because your anxiety will want to know everything. They'll want to know everything, but in fact, that's just building the negative cycle again. It's only increasing your worry. Um, so really, really have a think about cutting down or cutting back, or even if you feel, no, I'm too anxious, cut out for, you know, cut it out altogether. Believe me, you will always know what's going on because somebody will tell you. Um, you know, so don't think you'll miss out. You won't miss out if you have to cut it. You have to turn it all off. So that's it. 7 tips that will help. As I said, if you picked none other than the sleep, then pick the sleep. Go watch the video on the 11 tips to help you, you know, help you sleep better. They're very quick, very easy to implement those tips. And if you need any further help, please reach out either to your GP or, as I said, you can self-refer to a therapist. And I will leave it there. And thank you, Deirdre, for tuning in as always. And I will talk to you all next week.